In this, change agents aren't alone. Titus Alexander runs a campaigning alliance of charities called Democracy Matters. He told us that he and other members of his organisation received letters from the No campaign which he considers intimidating, calling on them to state publicly that they were not backing a yes vote. This was because he had allowed his group's logo to appear on a website called Take Back Parliament, which had called for a referendum for voting change.
We did not take sides on the referendum issue itself. We very quickly discovered that all of our members had received a letter from the No to AV campaign. The letter said that because the Democracy Matters logo appeared on the Take Back Parliament website, it implied that that organisation, our members, had all endorsed the Yes to AV campaign. Attached to the letter was a letter to the Charity Commission that this was inappropriate activity on the part of the charities, and that if the charities did not give denial of support to the campaign, they were proposing to make a complaint to the Charity Commission about inappropriate political activity. Then we discovered that the No to AV campaign had been writing to the funders, making inquiries about the funding of our members under Freedom of Information law.
So the veiled threat here was that your members might lose their funding?
Yes, the double threat. One was that you might jeopardise charitable status, and the other threat was that their funders might withdraw funding.
Titus Alexander has now asked for the Democracy Matters logo to be taken down from the Take Back Parliament website to avoid any suggestion that they were taking sides. But he says the No camp were heavy-handed at the very least in the pursuit of his members. So why did the No side pursue charities with such vigour? Matthew Elliott of No to AV.
There are some very important laws around the conduct of elections and referendums in the UK. And one of those laws is the fact that charities can't take a political position. All we did at the No campaign was to highlight the law, to explain to the charities that they were breaking the law, and they were very pleased that the Charity Commission actually produced guidelines clarifying what charities could or could not do in this referendum.
Some of these charities and organisations have spoken to us and said that they felt, quote, intimidated and threatened by the No to AV campaign's tactics. Some of them hadn't even endorsed the Yes campaign explicitly to begin with anywhere.
All the correspondence we had with the charities wasn't done through lawyers. It was our referendum agent writing to them. We also wrote to the Charity Commission, and most of our correspondence was with the Charity Commission, asking them to clarify the law in this area. We didn't pursue any charity who wasn't associated with the Yes campaign.
From claiming the switch to AV will cost Britain £250 million to posters featuring the slogan "Say No to President Clegg," No to AV hasn't been afraid to go on the attack in the campaign. But Yes to Fairer Votes hasn't been above the fray either. We've come to Ruskin House, a Georgian townhouse in a leafy part of Croydon, South London. Home to the trade union, Labour Party and cooperative movement in the borough, it regularly plays host to the local folk and blues club. Tonight, though, there's a different sort of event here. The penultimate leg of a national tour of alternative vote referendum debates. Organised by the No campaign, these events, according to the website, are intended to take the AV issue directly to the people. The thing is, so far, only about a quarter of these debates, which began in Newcastle and end in Cardiff, have featured a debater from the Yes campaign. On the platform, No campaigner and Labour grandee Margaret Beckett, Gavin Barwell, a local Conservative MP who's voting no, and an empty chair. Once again, the Yes campaign were conspicuous only by their absence.
There are only 3 countries that use the AV system that is being put forward to you in this referendum. One is Fiji, and they're trying to get rid of it. A second is Australia, and in the last poll, over 60% of Australians wanted to get rid of it. And the third is Papua New Guinea.
The No campaign's national tour of AV referendum debates was billed as fair and impartial. Yet at most venues around Britain, the other side of the argument was notably absent.
At the moment, we don't appear to have anybody from the Yes campaign.
Once again, they are standing outside. We have been outside. We have asked them numerous times to come in, join the debate, please.
We will ideally have two sides to the question, for and against, so to speak. One side hasn't turned up.
For the Yes campaign, we have no speakers as yet present.
The Yes campaign are adamant that they were not invited on any of the panels.
We haven't been invited to take part in those debates, but what we have been doing, and I've done this myself and many other of our supporters and activists have been doing it, whenever there's been an opportunity to have a debate with both sides put and with a neutral chair, we've taken all those opportunities, and I've been spending lots of time outside London at the debates, and they've been absolutely great, but I'm afraid they didn't have the courtesy to invite me to their rallies.
But that is strongly disputed by No to AV campaign director Matthew Elliott.
We sent them a letter when we announced the debates, giving them the details of all the venues, all the dates, all the times. When we sent that letter, it was all over their website, all over their Facebook page, all over their Twitter feed, so obviously they were aware of this letter.
The Yes side say they weren't invited to these debates.
We're delighted that Ben Bradshaw, head of Labour Yes, turned up to a debate. We're delighted that Billy Bragg, another prominent Labour Yes supporter, turned up to debate as well. On the other hand, the Yes campaign have put on debates too. And where possible, we have actually sent along a speaker to those debates, even though, first of all, they had a Yes supporter chairing them, and secondly, our No representative, they were obviously debating usually about 4 or 5 people, so it wasn't really a debate, it was more of a rally with a No spokesman there.
While No to AV have claimed the Electoral Reform Society has a conflict of interest, some on the Yes side have raised questions about those leading the No campaign. At the helm of the No to AV campaign are some of the canniest political operators in the business. They include Lord Leach, a veteran of previous campaigns against joining the euro, and Matthew Elliott, chief executive of the Taxpayers Alliance, a lobby group who were a thorn in the side of the last government, with regular exposés of what they branded as public sector waste. Mr Elliott has taken a sabbatical from the Taxpayers Alliance to run the No campaign, whose HQ is just across the street from me now. His main team there contains 3 others who have worked for the Taxpayers Alliance or an affiliated group. The No campaign stresses, however, that it counts Labour supporters and the unions, as well as Conservatives in its ranks. We know who's funding the Yes campaign, but at the time of recording the programme at least, the Yes side point out we know next to nothing about the finances of the No to AV side. Katie Ghosh.
Well, I don't understand when we have gone all out in the spirit of honesty and transparency and published every single one of our donations, both the in-cash and the in-kind donations, why the No campaign won't do the same. And I am waiting with bated breath to hear from them as to where their money is coming from.
What do you suspect? I mean, why do you think they've been slow, or so far haven't at all released their donors?
Well, I have no idea where their money's coming from because they haven't had the courtesy to tell the British public. But it does make me feel a bit suspicious, and I wonder why they don't want to disclose their donations when we have.
We can say this. Matthew Elliott is not currently taking a salary from the Taxpayers Alliance. He's on the No team's payroll instead. Unlike his counterpart at Yes, Katie Ghosh, who's still being paid by the Electoral Reform Society. But curiously, given the Taxpayers Alliance's calls for transparency and accountability, so far Matthew Elliott hasn't revealed who's bankrolling No, although he told us he will do so very shortly. We've done a ring-around of likely backers. Most declined to comment. We did speak to one person who confirmed he was a donor. Lord Edmiston, the West Midlands-based motor trade entrepreneur and philanthropist, told us he'd donated a significant sum. He's also supported the Taxpayers Alliance.
One of the features on this other Taxpayers Alliance website is an automatic Taxpayers Alliance quote generator.
Some on the Yes side question whether Matthew Elliott and the Taxpayers Alliance live up to the values of openness and accountability that they espouse. One of them is graphic designer and left-wing campaigner Clifford Singer, who follows them closely. He's even set up a website called The Other Taxpayers Alliance.
I think they are effective campaigners, there's no doubt about that. The Taxpayers Alliance have a certain style, it's certainly a negative style, and I think we've seen that come across into the No to AV campaign. Matthew Elliott said something very interesting when he took over the No campaign. He said, if you're going to be a fearless fighter for open politics, you really need the battle scars to prove it. My experience of the Taxpayers Alliance is that they are anything but open, and I do think this lack of transparency and lack of who funds them is a real issue.
The Taxpayers Alliance research has benefited from over £500,000 worth of funding from one charity called the Politics and Economics Research Trust. According to the accounts filed in 2008, its office was at 43 Old Queen Street, which at the time was also the address of the Taxpayers Alliance. But that's not the only thing they have in common. Their website, which consists of just 2 pages, is registered in the name of Matthew Elliott, and the charity's original name, the Taxpayers Alliance Reform Trust. The vast majority of the grants this charity has made have been to the Taxpayers Alliance, which might prompt the question, are they just one and the same thing? TPA watcher Clifford Singer.
The Charity Commission has looked into it and they've concluded that they weren't doing anything wrong. To us, the Taxpayers Alliance looks like a very political organisation, and we were surprised that a charity is sending money to it in this way.
Matthew Elliott has been very much involved in fundraising and media strategy for the No campaign. So what of his fundraising record at the Taxpayers Alliance, where he campaigned vociferously against public sector waste? The Charity Commission found no evidence that the Politics and Economics Research Trust was used as a vehicle to channel funds enhanced with gift aid to the Taxpayers Alliance. Gift aid is a tax break which applies to donations made by UK taxpayers to charities. We asked Matthew Elliott whether that meant the TPA had never benefited from gift aid.
The Taxpayers Alliance has carried out research projects which were funded by the Politics and Economics Research Trust that can raise money and can top up that money using gift aid.
You're answering in principle, in the abstract almost. You're saying that, yes, it can happen in principle, but has it happened?
You're absolutely right that the Politics and Economics Research Trust does benefit from gift aid, and therefore by giving grants to the Taxpayers Alliance for research, I guess in a way, indirectly, the Taxpayers Alliance is also benefiting from gift aid in a sense, but these are in 2 entirely separate bodies.
As founder of the Taxpayers Alliance, Matthew Elliott has been a stern critic of public sector waste. And it's a message he's carried across to his new role at the No campaign, where he's described the referendum as a waste of public money. But does that mean, I asked him, that his campaign will refuse to take up the £380,000 it's entitled to from public funds on principle?
That's a good question. The way in which the taxpayer funding of the campaign is set out is basically so it funds the organisation, the administration of the campaigns, rather than the actual campaigning. There are very, very strict rules about what you can and cannot spend the money on.
I can imagine you, if you had your Taxpayers Alliance hat on, and we were hearing that from a minister, I can imagine you giving the minister a very hard time.
We would much rather not have this referendum, but yes, there will be taxpayers' funds used in this referendum, but it's important that we get the right result to defend one person, one vote.
So far, the referendum campaign has not set the heather alight, to paraphrase one Scottish observer. But as we've discovered, within the campaigns themselves, there's a huge amount of passion. The question is whether, with just 4 weeks to go until polling day, that passion can be used to engage the voters.